A being saved my life. My grandfather was a sadistic, violent predator. To cover up an affair, my dad dropped me there for a weekend. Mom thought we were camping. When I was there, my grandfather abused me terribly. I was only 8 at the time. When I regained consciousness, I screamed at him that I would tell others what he had done. That pissed him off, so he dragged me outside into the middle of the night and tied me to one of those old metal lawn chairs. It was autumn, and it was drizzling outside. I was so cold that night. I'm pretty sure I had hypothermia. I just remember shaking, and that the wet and cold hurt. I was going to die. I felt it. Then there was a bright blue light. Out of it stepped a tall, thin woman with black hair cut straight and straight bangs. She was wearing white and had a bead necklace. She walked over to me and touched my face, then hugged me. Her skin was so soft, and she was so warm. Then she stood behind me. I expected she would untie me and we would go into the light. I thought I was dead. Instead, she put her arms around me, and she had colorful wings. I remember being shocked because I thought angel wings were white. I immediately got warm and dry. My muscles relaxed, and the aches and pains from grandfather eased. I can still feel the warmth that I felt. I can still remember her floral smell. I never, in my life, before or since, felt as safe as I did in her arms. She stayed until morning. I think grandfather forgot about me because he came running out at dawn. He commented that I must have gotten loose because I was dry and everything was still wet out. In high school, we were studying Egyptian mythology. I saw a painting of a Set, an ancient Egyptian goddess, for the first time, and I knew it was her that had saved my life. To this day, I have a statue of her in my living room to show thanks for saving me. I'm now 48, and just now starting to really deal with all of it. I had an abusive mom, a deadbeat dad who left when I was 12. Then I got married to my husband, who was emotionally abusive for the first 10 years. My point, it's never too late to start working through it, and rage is part of that process. Be gentle with yourself and experience your emotions without judgment or guilt. Home check. I'm an armed private security officer in Colorado Springs, and over the last few months, my company has been doing a specific property check within a community we already patrol at night. 1315 Wood Avenue has had an interesting past, better known as the Burns Mansion. James Ferguson Burns, whom died in Colorado Springs, was a very wealthy man in the greater Colorado area. His death was suspected in the mansion on September 23, 1917, as well as a few servants on property. After conducting the police and forensic investigation, the city shut down the entire property to be renovated, but this event displaced all the tenants and families with no warning. It was said that James Burns dabbled in spiritualism via board and mediums. On the night of September 21st, I was the patrol officer on duty for that area. Our normal procedure for the property is check around the house to ensure primary structure is secured and that any homeless person have not made entry. After dismounting from my cruiser, I began to check the street side of the property, which had no out-of-norm signs, a discarded coffee cup, few piles of wood, etc. At the far end, I noticed the porch swing was slightly swaying side to side, but thought nothing of it as this home is an old location. I began around to the rear of the mansion, and as soon as I came around the gate, I heard a staggered elder man's voice coming from the second floor of the house. So instead of checking the rear of the mansion, first I went straight to investigate the sounds. Old furniture, toys, and photos covered most of the ground. While trying not to fall while making my way, I heard an elderly voice again, but it was still faint. Now knowing the possibility of an intruder was nearly 100%, I drew my sidearm. I announced myself in the loudest command tone I could manage, leaving no doubt that I wouldn't be heard. After the second attempt of commanding, anyone identified themselves failed. I moved up the stairs. The second level is in such a state that it looked as if it were the setting of a horror movie. After clearing the small room, I had only a small walk in the closet left, thinking surely this is where the subject is. I kept my sidearm level as I whipped the door open with my opposite hand. Nothing occupied this space. I holstered thinking maybe I just had too much or too little caffeine, or a raccoon was being playful. I excited the carriage house to resume checking the mansion door barricades to ensure that they were either locked or undamaged. While at the parlor doorway, I saw a shadow from behind the door under a slight split at the bottom. I ran to the parlor window, flashing the entire room to see who in the hell was walking around inside. Again, nothing. No sign that anything had been inside since earlier that day. Now pissed that so many weird things were happening, I checked the rest of the doors, which were all locked. I headed back to the cruiser and lit a cigarette. As I took a long drag, the inside lights flickered off briefly. I looked up to the second floor where a discolored face peered out before the lights sprang back on. I flicked my butt, jumped into the car, and called out, 1315 code 4, clearing. I saw my dad after he died. My dad died October 23rd. My mom was 4 months pregnant when she revealed it to her family. My dad was the light of my day, a person I looked up to. We spent most of the time together watching cooking shows and eating together. Then he died when I was 5 years old outside my aunt's house because he had a massive asthma attack. He was born with holes in his lungs. I don't know that as a fact, but that's what my mom told me. And so that caused him to have severe asthma. He would have survived, but he fell and hit a huge rock with a sharp edge. All I remember was the morning of his funeral and my mom crying hysterically, telling us he died, and told us to get ready to go to the ceremony. I remember not feeling sad or anything, like he was not actually dead, and that he was going to come back. A few months later, my mom revealed she was pregnant with my little sister. The day my mom went into labor, me and my older brother went to stay at our great aunt's house. It was the middle of the night, and me and my brother were watching TV when we heard a knock at the door, and I opened it. It was my dad. I was supposed to be happy, right? But in that moment, I felt that it would be the last time I will ever see him. He told me that he loved me and such, and how much he loves my mom and my brother. Then he said goodbye and left. After that, I went to sleep and told my aunt about it the next day. She said I must have been asleep and that it was just a dream, but it felt so real in the moment. And to add on to that, my real brother was also at the door with me. The interaction only lasted a couple of minutes, but those couple of minutes will always stay with me until I die and get reunited with him. Strangest night as a security guard. I used to have a part-time job as a security guard at a senior home, not assisted living, so there weren't any nurses or such on the premises. Just me and 50 to 100 old people. My shift was weekends, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., though nothing really happened until 10 p.m., when all the visitors left and the residents were asleep. I walked around, checking the windows and doors, making sure they were locked. The cafeteria has a door to the back garden. I make sure to lock it too. After finishing my rounds, it's 4 stories high, I get back to my desk, and I see movement in the garden. It's windy, so I assumed it was just trees and bushes blowing around, but I keep a close eye on it. That's when I see the shape of a person in a white dress dancing in the garden. I race to the cafeteria and see nothing. After checking the door, it's still locked. I go back to my desk and watch the feed. She comes back, whirling around, and it makes me feel cold. I grab my phone to check one more time. Still nothing. But this time, the door is unlocked. I relock it, head back to my desk, and look through the cameras. Nothing is in the building, but I walked around just in case. After confirming nobody is inside, I sit back down to calm down, assuming I mistakenly unlocked the door. Then, I see a shadowy figure standing in front of the main entrance doors. I look at the front camera, nothing there. I look back to the door, and the shadow is standing right there. That's when things got really weird. The shadow smiled, disappeared, then the doors opened. To open those doors, you need a security card, or a resident to open it from the inside. Nobody was there to buzz them in, and nobody was outside to use a card. But the door is wide open. I brace myself to deal with whatever tries to enter through the second set of doors. Those are just motion sensor. Nothing comes. The outside doors close and the inside doors remain shut. After the doors shut, I saw a flash of light in the garden camera, but then nothing. I decide to call maintenance and tell them about the faulty door, and walk outside to investigate. Going around the whole building, just in case I find a kid messing with me. That's when I see giant steel double doors where the dumpsters are stored. They're bent outward. A vehicle hitting the doors would push them inward, but the doors looked like they were rammed from the inside. When I mentioned that to maintenance, they were shocked. The doors were fine when my shift started, and I didn't hear any noise. I quit a week later. The Uber Ghost. I've been driving for Uber and Lyft for a couple of years now, and the story I'm about to share with you is both exciting and sad. I got a call to pick up a guy at a bar in the downtown area of my city, and I waited by the sidewalk for what was 4 men walking to my car. I distinctly remember 4 men, 1 older and 3 younger, coming to my car. When they got in, one of the guys coming in from the right back door was finishing his cigarette before getting inside. There was a middle-aged Irishman in the front passenger seat, 2 Hispanic males, and 1 youthful male who would look like he was from Puerto Rico or somewhere. He was young, with dark brown eyes, with a buzz cut, and was wearing a wooden rosary. The whole ride he was quiet, not engaging in any discussions. The other 3 men were talking crap, but as friends. When I got to their hotel to drop them off, I remember turning on the top light in the car so that the passengers could make sure they got everything before they left. But as I looked back, the kid in the middle with the rosary was gone. They hadn't even opened the doors to leave yet. My brain was unable to figure this out. The 2 young men in the back got out, and the only one left was the Irish guy. I turned to him and explained that there was a 4th rider, and he thought I was bullcrapping. Even laughed and asked if I was sober. Finally, he asked me in a sort of mock tone what the guy looked like, and I described to him how I did before. Then it got weird. His face looked more sober and he said, "This is weird. I don't believe in those things much, but you just described one of our friends who died before we came here to this city. He died back home in a car wreck." I went home after that night and sat in bed trying to figure out what I had just experienced. My mom said as a child I would point to corners and in hallways in our home, and she never knew who I was pointing at. As I got older, I saw shadows in my grandparents' homes. I saw someone move things, seen things turn on and off by themselves, seen someone vanish behind a tree trunk, and even seen a statue's face change. It was not a good experience, but it certainly opened my eyes more.